Constantinople played a very important historical role. It was the seat of the Byzantine Empire right up until its conquest by the Ottomans. Because it lasted so long, it was able to preserve classical Greek and Roman culture that would otherwise have been lost. Without this preservation, our modern-day ideals and values would be very different. Constantinople was also the site of the first organized meeting of Christian bishops, the Council of Nicaea, in 325 AD. It was here that the Gospels of the New Testament were agreed, and the ideas and core beliefs of Christians was set. This was to have a massive impact on historical events for the next 1700 years up to the present day. One of the most influential Byzantine emperors was Justinian. Justinian was responsible for the codification of Roman law. This means that he had all of Roman law written down. Because of this, Roman law was able to be used throughout Western Europe and form the basis for our modern legal system that we use today. Justinian was very ambitious. He wanted to restore the Roman Empire to its former glory by conquering the western lands now controlled by barbarian tribes. Under Justinian, the empire was as large as the Roman Empire used to be, and the Byzantines were able to control all of the trade that came into and out of Europe. The Byzantine Empire was at its most powerful under the rule of Emperor Justinian. Byzantine art and architecture had a style all of its own. It was influenced by both the inspiration provided by the Christian, Eastern Orthodox Church along with the power of the imperial bureaucracy. The main examples of Byzantine art are the icons and religious images which are still reproduced in Eastern Orthodox churches today. Another example of Byzantine art is the mosaics that could be seen in churches, palaces and other public buildings. Probably the most famous example of Byzantine architecture is the famous Hagia Sophia. This was originally the Church of Saint Sophia, pronounced Hagia Sophios in Greek. It had a wonderful ornate dome. When Constantinople fell to the Ottomans, it was turned into a mosque, and minarets were added. Nowadays, the Hagia Sophia is a museum. It is a most impressive building, even today. The Byzantine Empire was able to preserve Greco-Roman culture through the Dark Ages. The main language was Greek, and Greek Orthodox Christianity dominated the imperial bureaucracy. The legacy of the Byzantines was their libraries, where all of the ancient learning of the Greeks and Romans were kept and preserved, waiting to be rediscovered by Europeans in the Renaissance period. Up until 1054, the Eastern and Western churches got on fairly well, but in 1054, there was a split between the Western Church, which became known as the Roman Catholic Church, and the Eastern Church, which became known as the Orthodox Church. The Eastern Church was based in Rome, and the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, was the head. The liturgy was conducted in Latin. In the East, It was close to the center of the empire and so was controlled more by the Byzantine imperial bureaucracy. The liturgy was conducted in Greek and the Patriarch of Constantinople was the head of the church. As the church is divided over the Great Schism, so the Pope was able to consolidate his power and be accepted as the sole authority in religious matters, in the West, at least. The Byzantine Empire was able to influence Eastern Europe and Russia through trade. They controlled the trade in the Mediterranean, the Baltic and the Black Sea, and so their influence spread up into Russia. Orthodox Christianity was adopted throughout Eastern Europe and into Russia, and the Greek language was adapted by Saint Cyril, becoming the Cyrillic alphabet that is still used by the Russians and other Eastern European nations today. If you take a look at church architecture and religious art, you will see that it is very similar to that found in the Byzantine Empire. So we can make an easy deduction that Byzantine art and architecture was spread throughout Eastern Europe and Russia through trade. This is another example of cultural diffusion. So that is the Byzantine Empire. They continued the legacy of the Greeks and Romans. They controlled trade, spread Christianity, and preserved the knowledge of the ancient civilizations for future generations. Pretty awesome, don't you think?